it's dawned on me how loads work. On the grid, the load is already there. And so consequently, you stick your two fingers in the outlet and you get fried, right? Because the load is already there. And you're simply putting yourself in parallel or in series, I don't know which, to tell you the truth, with the load that's already there. See, when they say load balancing, they mean they're balancing the load that's already there. It doesn't mean they're balancing us, our loads, because our loads are trivial. Their system has to be stable based on loads that are already there, regardless of whether or not anybody plugs in an appliance at all. And the reason why I say this is because I was thinking about certain anecdotal stories we have about free energy devices, and the way they operate, if there's no load, then no energy shows up. The energy shows up, the supply shows up to satisfy whatever demands are made upon the circuit. If there's no demand, then there's no supply. Now that's totally backwards from what we're brainwashed into believing. We're brainwashed into believing, no, you can't have a load unless you first have a supply. But that's so backwards. It's so backwards. What did Christ say? He didn't say that. He said, up until now you haven't asked. Ask now that your joy may be full. Something like that. So, we got it backwards. We literally have it backwards because in the anecdotal stories of free energies devices, that's literally what would happen is the energy would not show up unless the demand was there. So it's not that the load became the generator necessarily, but without it there was no supply. And in other words, to put it a different way, the supply satisfied, any demand was satisfied with whatever supply was needed to satisfy the demand, provided, of course, the circuit could handle it, so that there was never any shortage of energy. So it wasn't just free energy, it's that it only showed up if you needed it, and if you didn't need it, it didn't show up. And whatever you needed would show up. I mean, I keep saying the same thing, and it's only slightly different. But it's a completely different concept than what we're accustomed to. Which means, knowing that what I know about the grid, what little I know, is still something more than what the consumer knows, the demand, the load, is already there. And so it's not like when they do load balancing, they're balancing additional loads. They're balancing the load that's already there. And if we tweak it a little when we add on our demands, it amounts to like such a teeny, minuscule change in the system, which, their system is so delicate, in order for it to stay in a state of balance, what I guess, you couldn't call it resonance, really. Well, maybe you could. That's right. No, you would. That's right. See, John Bendini, in the early stages of his development of a certain circuit concept, would require the use of resonance in order to make the circuit work. And everybody talks how important it is, but not really. It's only important if you don't know what you're doing. But if you know what you're doing, you can make the circuit solid state and not require resonance in order to operate. That's if you know what you're doing. And I've always suspected it because of what John Bedini had said, and now after years of simulating, I can safely say that's correct. You don't have to worry about resonance if you know what you're doing. But so I can't assume that the electrical engineers who are in charge of the utility grid, the power grid, don't know what they're doing. For, let's say, just say an unknown reason, they don't bother to get past resonance. See, they don't call it resonance. God forbid. They call it load balancing, but that's what it is. It's resonance. And the reason why I say I know that that's exactly what's going on is because Eric Dollard provides us the factual documentation to validate that outlook. And what he provided us was the perception that the phase angle of the sine wave being transmitted, let's say, from Las Vegas, when it arrives in Los Angeles, the top dead center position of the phase angle in Las Vegas has to exactly match the top dead center in Los Angeles. In other words, if they both operated with an atomic clock nearby, they would have to, the phase angle would always have to be in lockstep no matter where they were dispersed in space along the transmission line. And yet we know that there's this phenomenon called, the speed of light or anything less than that. And so there will tend to be drift, or lag, I should say, time lag. And that's not acceptable on the grid. And, Eric never said why, and nobody ever asked him why. And I guess I answered my own question without even posing the question. It's a state of resonance that they have to achieve, and they have to maintain it everywhere throughout the grid. What he said, the phase angle had to be in lockstep everywhere in the grid spatially, no matter how spatially separate they may be. What he's saying effectively is resonance. Because when I see a circuit that's in resonance, all the components do the same thing at the same time. The wave behavior, which is what Eric was describing, the wave behavior in one area of the circuit has to exactly match the wave behavior in some other area of the circuit at the same time, so that all the components are literally functioning as one component. We can call it a complex component, but it's a singularity. It's no longer a compendium of different components, because they all have to operate at the same time. And this is what I see. I see triangular waves in which the current and the voltage has no separation between them, 0 degrees of separation, and this is anywhere within the circuit. The coils are exhibiting this. Everything is exhibiting this at the same time, and it's uncanny. Or if it's not experiencing it at the same time, it's doing the opposite. It's out of phase by 180 degrees, but never 90. See, normal conventional circuits, they always getting the coils and the caps mixed up by 90 degrees. And that's because they don't bother to integrate all the components into one resonant singularity in which the load is balanced. Now I can use the phrase because I know exactly what it means. I'm sorry about my yellow teeth. I don't brush my teeth with toothpaste. Sorry. So load balancing literally means resonance. How about that? So what was the point of this video? Oh, they're balancing the load that already exists on the grid, and conventional circuits are no different than overunity circuits in as much as the supply well, we can't say that about the consumer's conventional circuits. No, we can say it about the grid, though, because it's a public entity. Run for the public on behalf of the public, yet bearing secrets in plain sight, bearing mysteries in plain sight of us, and we don't even see them. We don't even recognize them for what they are. They have free energy, all right, and it's called load balancing. Yep. How about that? Well, I've said enough. Well, this is a heavy-duty video.